Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started for today. Welcome to our penultimate live lesson, our second to last live lesson in this series where we're doing an introduction to poetry. I hope you've got those materials open and perhaps you already started trying your hand at writing a poem. Keep that with you because you might be able to share that with some of the people in your breakout room towards the end of today's lesson. So, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. Here's our agenda for today. Um, Over the past 4 lessons, I've taught you how to hold a poem up to light like a color slide, to press an ear against the hive of a poem. I've taught you how to drop a mouse in and watch it probe its way out. I've taught you yesterday how to walk inside a poem's room and feel the walls for a switch. And today we're going to talk about water skiing across the surface of a poem. I'll model that for you with one other one of my favorite poems, and then you will try it out for yourself and share that experience with the people in your breakout rooms. So, just like always, I'm going to start with Billy Collins's Introduction to Poetry. This is the poem that's teaching us how to read a poem, and I'm just going to read it to you right now. Introduction to Poetry. I ask them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide, or press an ear against its hive. I say, drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out, or walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. We are not beating confessions out of poetry. We're not figuring out what it really means. We're not getting at some hidden, deeper meaning of the poem. We're just reading it and experiencing it and realizing that our experience of that poem is exactly what we're supposed to be getting from it. So let's get started. How do you water ski across the surface of a poem? Well, you start by doing everything that we've already talked about doing. You think about the pictures, the sounds, the lines, the light switches that resonate with you. And you think about what you get from those pictures, sounds, lines, and light switches. And then after you've gotten your own experience of that poem, you do a little research. You don't have to know anything about a poet, anything about their life or the circumstances they were writing about to appreciate a poem. But sometimes knowing a little bit more about a poet can shed some new light on that poem, give you an interesting look at it. And so that's what we're going to learn about today. So when you do that research, and you're going to do it on whatever device you have with you, you'll be looking a little bit into the poet and the poem, maybe some symbols in the poem, and thinking about what new light that research shed on your poem. What do you understand now about the poem that you didn't understand before? And I'm going to show you how to do this today with a poem called Inside the Apple. Let's take a look at that. Okay. Hopefully now you can see the text of the poem Inside the Apple. This is another one of my favorite poems. This poem was originally written in Hebrew. It's by a Israeli poet named Yehuda Amichai. And it's translated. So that presents some interesting aspects to this poem, but we're not going to worry too much about the translation, honestly. We're just going to read it, see what images, what sounds, what the lines look like, what light switches we can flip, and then we'll do a little research about the poem. Let me read it to you now. Inside the Apple by Yehuda Amichai. You visit me inside the apple. Together we can hear the knife paring around and around us carefully so the peel won't tear. You speak to me. I trust your voice because it has lumps of hard pain in it, the way real honey has lumps of wax from the honeycomb. I touch your lips with my fingers. That too is a prophetic gesture. and your lips are red the way a burnt field is black. It's all true. You visit me inside the apple, and you'll stay with me inside the apple until the knife finishes its work. Now, before I do any research, I'm just going to think a little bit about what images stood out to me, what tastes, what textures, what sounds. Obviously, the most prominent image in this poem is the image of an apple. I ate an apple yesterday, so I can picture exactly what that looks like. From the outside, you've got the shiny, glossy skin. It might be red or yellow or some combination of that. And then when you cut it open, you've got the white interior of the apple. It feels a little rough, maybe. It's wet. You've got the apple seeds inside in the core. I don't really know exactly what is going on with the apple in this poem. What does it mean to be inside an apple? You'd have to be incredibly small. I mean, seeds are inside an apple. And seeds are sort of like the starting of something, the beginning of something before it's become what it is that it is supposed to be. So maybe this poem has something to do with becoming. Saying that actually is kind of making me think that it might be about like pregnancy or birth, the apple being a symbol for the womb, the apple seed being a symbol for the fetus inside. Yet there's this knife outside. It's paring the skin of the apple away. Carefully so the peel won't tear, but it's still pulling the skin off of the apple slowly. Maybe it's removing some sort of protective barrier, opening up what has been hidden. And there are two people inside this apple. One of them is quiet and the other one speaks. And the voice has lumps of hard pain in it, the way real honey has lumps of wax from the honeycomb. Now, I don't know if you've ever gotten this before, but if you go to the grocery store, sometimes you can buy honey that comes in the honeycomb. And if you pick out a piece and chew on it, you get the sweetness of the honey, and then what's left behind is the wax from the honeycomb. So that's kind of what I'm imagining, chewing on that wax of the honeycomb and the sweetness of the honey. Then there's the next stanza where it says, I touch your lips with my fingers. That too is a prophetic gesture. If I do that to myself right now, it makes me think about, thinking a little bit. But if someone else is touching your lips with their fingers, are they telling you to be quiet, not to speak? So maybe there's something about silence in this poem. And then this next image is really powerful to me. Your lips are red the way a burnt field is black. There's some violence there. A burnt field, comparing red and black, two kind of aggressive colors. And then the last stanza, you visit me inside the apple and you'll stay with me inside the apple. Kind of like the speaker is forcing the other person to stay until the knife finishes its work. What is the knife doing? When I think of seeds being planted or an embryo during pregnancy, it's just a matter of time before those seeds germinate or that embryo is born and becomes a person. So maybe the knife is time. I don't know. This is such a confusing poem to me, and that's part of the reason that I love it, is I don't exactly know what it's saying, but it sounds really cool. And so one of the ways that I can try to figure out a little bit more about what it is saying is to do some research about the poem. So now I'm going to show you what that research might look like. I'm going to use Google. And first, I'm literally just going to search the poet. So I'm going to type in the poet's name, Yehuda Amichai. And I really like the Poetry Foundation. They're a super cool organization. So I'm going to go to that one. I'm going to do a little reading about Yehud Hamachai. There he is. Okay, it looks like he died in 2000. He was born in 1924. He's recognized as one of Israel's finest poets. His poems, written in Hebrew, have been translated into 40 languages. Okay. So it seems like he might likely use some Jewish symbolism. So that might be something to look into. If I look at his biography, it says he was born in Germany in 1924. So his family fled to Palestine when he was 12. So it seems like there might be war might have a significant impact on his life. And right away, I'm thinking about your lips are red the way a burned field is black. And that burnt field makes me think of war in some way. So maybe there's a connection there. He attended Hebrew University. Okay, I think I've got enough here. Now I'm going to just try Googling some of the symbols in this poem. And I'm going to Google, well, I want to know about apples in Judaism. When you look at that, apples and honey right there, first thing that comes up. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and let's see what it has to say. If my internet would work. Come on. Well, maybe I'll try a different one. Let's try this one. There we go. Okay. So it looks like it's a symbolic food. Apples and honey are. They're notably sweet. Symbolize hope for a sweet and happy year ahead. Apples and honey. Here we go. Honey symbolizes excitement for the sweet new year ahead. The apple was chosen due to the symbolic nature of the fruit, but what is the symbol? Ooh, in medieval times, apples were so revered that people would carve prayers into the apple skin. So maybe the knife is carving a prayer into the apple skin. So maybe inside the apple, this poem, let me come back to it real quick so you can take a look at it. Running into some technical trouble here. Okay, I'm just not going to come back to it, and hopefully you've got that document in front of you in case you need to look at it. So basically, when we look at this poem, we can see the knife pairing around. Maybe this poem's about hopes and dreams, and in a way, that makes sense that it could be something about something being born. You're hoping for this future. You're hoping for the potential for something to end up positive, sweet, and good. So that research kind of validated what we were already thinking about the poem, which is honestly very nice. Okay, I'm going to close this window and see if I can't get the screen sharing back up and going. Here we go. Okay, let me try that again. All right, so now coming back to the idea of water skiing across the poem, what I'd like you to do right now over the next couple of minutes is look at the poem, choose a poem that's in that document of selected poems and read it and notice what you notice, and then do a little bit of research to try to figure out what it is that the author or some of the symbols might have to do with the poem. Remember, what's most important is that you get your own experience first. And after you get that experience, then you can look and see what other people say about it. So I'm going to turn some music back on. We're going to take about 4 minutes for you to read and do some research, and then we'll jump into our breakout groups and talk about what you noticed. All right, get to it. Okay, folks. Now it's time to head into those breakout rooms. Before we go, though, I want to remind you of how this is going to work. What you are going to do is read your poem aloud to the people in that breakout room. You'll ask them to answer the questions that are on this slide. What pictures, sounds, lines, or light switches resonate with you, and what do you get from those pictures, sounds, lines, and or light switches? And then after they have shared, tell them what you learned by doing some of that outside research. Let them know what you found out about your poem. So let's go ahead and head into those breakout rooms, and we will finish up our class when you come back. We'll spend about 4 minutes there for you to talk. See you then. Okay, folks, welcome back. This is the last thing we're going to do before we finish up for today, and that is to try out this idea in your own poetry. So maybe take that poem you started at the beginning of today's lesson or start fresh. What I'd like you to do in the next 3 minutes is write a poem that includes references to things your audience might not be familiar with. They could be things about yourself that are more personal. They could be more general knowledge, and make sure that they can still enjoy your poem without fully understanding them. But it's something that they might need to look into a little bit to learn a little bit about more, learn a little bit more about. So go ahead and start writing that, and then be ready to share your poem with the people in your breakout rooms. Take about 3 minutes to do that. About 30 more seconds to write. Okay, folks, in just a second, I'm going to send you to your breakout rooms to share your poetry. Again, we're not going to come back together again after that. So once you're done, you're free to chat with each other until the breakout room closes or leave. We will have our final live lesson tomorrow. We will learn to just let a poem be, and I get to share truly one of my all-time favorite poems ever with you. So that's what you have to look out for. Don't forget to continue doing your independent reading, your journal writing, your no writing practice. And next week, we will not be having any more live lessons, but what we will be doing is we will be working on our poetry anthology. So I will give you more info then. All right, I'm going to send you out to those breakout rooms. Enjoy sharing your poetry with each other, and I will see you all tomorrow.